Let me start with something that shocked a lot of people this morning. At around 11 a.m. Eastern Time, the President of the United States threatened to impose 100% tariffs on every single Canadian import. Not 25%, not 35%, 100%. That means prices on Canadian goods would instantly double. And the reason? Canada just signed a new trade deal with China. Now, this might sound like just another tariff headline, but stay with me, because what's really happening here isn't about electric vehicles, seafood, or farming. This is about power. This is about control. And this is about the future of North America. Let's rewind 1 week. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney lands in Beijing. It's the first visit by a Canadian leader to China in 8 years. For nearly a decade, relations were frozen. Tariffs, retaliation, silence. Now suddenly, everything changes. After closed-door talks with President Xi Jinping, Canada and China announce a surprise agreement. China cuts massive tariffs on Canadian canola and seafood. Canada agrees to allow about 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into its market each year at a low tariff. For Canadian farmers and fishermen, this is huge. For Ontario's auto industry, it's terrifying. But for Washington, it's a red flag. Because just 2 years earlier, Canada had matched the United States exactly, placing 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs. Same policy, same logic. Now Canada is breaking ranks, and that's where things start to spiral. A few days later, Carney flies to Davos for the World Economic Forum. World leaders, CEOs, global media. On stage, Carney delivers a blunt message. He says the old global order is over. He talks about powerful countries using tariffs as weapons, about allies being pressured, about middle powers needing to stand together. He doesn't name Trump. He doesn't need to. The room gives him a standing ovation. Then Trump speaks the next day. He mocks foreign leaders, talks about Greenland again, and then goes after Canada directly. He says Canada lives because of the United States. Carney fires back. Canada doesn't live because of America, he says. Canada thrives because it's Canada. That moment matters because from that point on, this becomes personal. Trump pulls Carney from a diplomatic initiative. Social media attacks follow. And then comes today's threat, 100% tariffs. But here's what most headlines are missing. This isn't just about hurt feelings. This is about a ticking clock. In exactly 6 months, the United States, Canada, and Mexico must review their massive trade agreement, the deal that replaced NAFTA. Over $2 trillion in trade depends on it. If all three don't recommit, the agreement slowly starts falling apart. Trump wants that review to reshape North America. He wants tougher rules. He wants Canada and Mexico aligned with U.S. policy against China. He wants to close every possible back door, because Washington believes China is quietly using Canada and Mexico to bypass American tariffs. Parts made in China, final assembly in North America, then tariff-free entry into the U.S. Whether this is happening at large scale or not almost doesn't matter. Trump believes it is, and Canada's new China deal looks to him like proof. From Trump's perspective, this is simple. If America is trying to economically decouple from China, it can't allow its closest neighbors to deepen ties with Beijing. That breaks the whole strategy. So the tariff threat is leverage, peer pressure, a message to Canada: choose us or pay the price. But here's the other side of the story. Canada isn't moving toward China because it suddenly loves Chinese EVs.
Canada is moving because the United States has become unpredictable. When your closest ally threatens tariffs, talks about annexation, posts maps showing you as the 51st state, you start looking for alternatives. Carney calls it diversification. Right now, about 75% of Canadian exports go to the US. That's dangerous dependence. So, Canada is building new relationships with China, Europe, India, Southeast Asia, not to replace America overnight, but to reduce vulnerability. And that's exactly what scares Washington, because once Canada has options, US leverage disappears. Now let's talk about what 100% tariffs would actually mean. Every day, nearly $3 billion in goods cross the US-Canada border. Canada supplies most of America's imported oil, most of its imported electricity, huge amounts of steel, aluminum, and uranium.
American auto factories depend on Canadian parts. US refineries depend on Canadian crude. Homebuilders rely on Canadian lumber. Double those prices overnight? You don't just hurt Canada, you hammer American consumers. Factories slow down, supply chains freeze, layoffs begin. This isn't theory. This is how modern economies work. You can't rebuild 30 years of integration with a presidential announcement. So, will Trump actually do it? Maybe. Legally, he probably can. But politically? That's where Carney is placing his bet. He's betting that American businesses and voters will push back harder than Canada breaks. He's betting that Trump can't absorb the domestic fallout. It's risky. Trump has shown before he's willing to accept short-term pain for long-term control. But Carney seems to believe he has no real choice, because the alternative is permanent submission, letting Washington dictate who Canada can trade with. That's not sovereignty. And this is why the next 6 months matter. Everything happening right now is positioning for July. Trump wants alignment. Canada wants independence with stability. The United States wants control. Canada wants partnership. If neither side bends, the entire North American trade framework could start to unravel. And that wouldn't just hurt these 3 countries. It would send shockwaves across the global economy. Because these supply chains are deeply intertwined. Parts cross borders multiple times before becoming finished products. Engineers collaborate across countries. Factories exist because long-term access was guaranteed. Break that system, and everyone feels it. So where does this leave us? Right now, we're watching a real-time power struggle, not just between 2 leaders, but between 2 visions of the world. One based on pressure and dominance, the other on cooperation and sovereignty. Trump is testing how far he can push. Carney is testing how much pressure Canada can take. Someone will blink. The only question is who. So here's what to watch. Does Canada back away from the China deal, or does Carney hold firm? Do trade talks quietly soften behind closed doors, or does July become a breaking point? Because this isn't really about EVs or canola. It's about whether rules still matter, or whether raw power decides everything. The next 6 months will tell us. If this helped you understand what's really happening beneath the headlines, make sure to like and subscribe. This story is far from over, and I'll be here to walk you through every turn. Let me know in the comments, do you think Canada will stand firm, or will it bend under pressure? And which choice do you think shapes Canada's future better? See you in the next one!